know who we are? Yeah, do you know who we are?
Some random brats? The third girl slapped me across the face.
Who's the brat, you stupid plebe?
Ow, that hurt!
And you deserved it. Nobody gets to reject us. Nobody! We're the Linden Girls, and we always get what we want. And you don't ever forget that.
Sorry to disappoint you girls, but I'm not dating you all. Not even interested in dating even one of you. I got slapped again, this time by the girl called Taylor.
You're gonna regret this. You are so gonna regret this.
The girls all turned at the same time, flipped their hair at me, and began walking away. Phew, I was prepared to fight for my life should they have decided to drag me to wherever they wanted to take me. But no sooner had I breathed a sigh of relief than an eruption of clapping, whooping, and cheering made me jump from surprise. Turned out nobody in that school ever dared to stand up to those triplets. They were rich, pretty, and popular. And before I came along, every student there lived in constant fear of Stephanie, Mindy, and Taylor. My classmates carried me out of the halls and onto the quad over their shoulders like a hero. Way to make an impression on my first day at the new school, I guess. Hi everyone, my name's Paul. Do you want your story animated too? Then like and subscribe. Comment your idea down below. You never know. Your inspiration may be the next one we post. Alright, now back to the story. I grew up the only son of two very, special people. Mom used to be a flight attendant, and Dad, well, Dad never really had any sort of job in the traditional sense of the word. He calls it being self-employed. The state calls it being unemployed. I call it hustling. And no, not in the good way. Dad was basically a scammer. He scammed his way so much through life that he doesn't know any other way to exist. He can lie at the drop of a hat, and he will lie, as long as it gets him what he wants, which is usually money. They adopted me when I was only 2. My biological mom was some friend of my mom's. She disappeared soon after abandoning me. Mom and Dad tried to raise me as well as they knew how, so I don't fault them for that. Only thing is, they're not the best role models. When Mom lost her job at the airline, Dad had to provide for us full time. So, he came up with this awesome idea of making me pretend I was bound to a wheelchair. Mom would put dark makeup around my eyes to make me look sick, and we'd all hang out outside the local Fall Mart waiting for the next sucker to walk by. Dad would wheel me along, and then suddenly, as if by accident, he'd almost bump his chosen mark. He'd apologize, and when whoever it was noticed me, surprise! Dad would come out with the waterworks, out of nowhere. It was honestly a sight to behold. I often wondered why he never went into acting. A grown man crying made a lot of people uncomfortable, and Dad used that to his advantage. He would spew the script he'd practiced 100 times, and before 5 minutes was up, he'd have some sort of donation clutched in his hands. "No, I couldn't possibly take your money," he would tell them. And it worked every time. We would always go home with a bunch of cash and sometimes even food. On weekends, we'd drive to random churches we'd never been to before. We'd approach the priest, and my parents would beg the priest to bless poor old paralyzed me. When those nice people saw me and how cute I was, well, it was game over. They all forked out their hard-earned money for a totally fake cause. We didn't even have to ask. We just made sure they saw me and how sad I looked. That life, while we never struggled so much, wasn't the best, though. We had to move a lot. And Mom and Dad were always running from people they'd scammed or borrowed from. That was how I ended up transferring to the same school that the Linden girls went to. And boy, do I regret the day I ever met them. The very next day, the Linden girls were waiting for me after school, and they were persistent. They were blackmailing me, threatening me, telling me they'd tell the principal I made them cry if I didn't go out with them. Taylor took one arm while Stephanie grabbed the other. And without any way to defend myself, Mindy put her hand down my pocket and fished out my phone.
Geez, don't resist so much. I just want to get your number. That way, you'll never get rid of us. We will always know what you're up to. Yeah, you won't get away from us now. You realize we can afford anything, right? Our dad owns the biggest casino in town. Exactly. So what's your damage? Any guy would jump at the chance to date us. Like, we can totally make all of your dreams come true. We could buy you anything. So why are you still struggling?
I finally was able to push them away from me. I grabbed my phone out of Mindy's hands and straightened myself. I just don't like you. Don't you get it? The girls rolled their eyes at me at the same time, and once again they flipped their hair and walked away, as if they were some sort of K-pop group.
Who are they?
Oh, Jesus! You scared me, Mom! When did I get so jumpy?
You didn't tell me you made friends with some rich kids.
They're not my friends, okay? They're just really pushy.
Well, they are now.
I didn't like the glint in my mom's eyes when she said that. It was always the look she got when she and Dad came up with their crazy schemes. And unsurprisingly enough, I was right. The moment Mom found out that the Linden girls were super rich and that their dad owned a casino, they forced me to hang out with them. Once again, my parents were using me for their scams. And at first, I didn't realize what they were trying to do. But then they started making me wear a wire, recording the girls. And they would make me ask them very specific questions about their dad's casino, how the security was like, where things were located. I tried to back out of it, but what could I do? I was just a kid. Don't ruin this for us, son. This could be our ticket to the big leagues.
Exactly. Just do what we tell you. Your daddy's pretty good at counting cards. By this time next week, we could be millionaires.
Mom and Dad took me to the casino. I was there to get them access to the high rollers table. And with Mindy, Taylor, and Stephanie there, we all got VIP access. I had never been treated so well in my life. Too bad I couldn't enjoy it one bit because I was so nervous the whole time. My job was to distract the girls while my dad cheated his way through the games. And it worked. Dad won. His first game, he got $100,000. But he didn't stop there. No, Mom and Dad were blinded by greed. They kept playing, and Dad kept winning. It was actually fascinating to watch him do his thing. For a second, I was on his side. I wanted him to keep winning. Wow, it was really working. We were really going to become millionaires. When he had won over $1 million, the door to the private room opened and in stepped a pretty serious-looking man. That was when I knew something was up. Dad, too, noticed, and he stood up to stop playing. He signaled that it was time to leave.
Sit. Come on now, I just got here. I heard there was a very good player tonight.
Mr. Linden did not waste a second. He grabbed my dad's arm and slammed him onto the table.
You didn't think I'd just let you cheat and run away with my money, did you? Come, let's play a game. If you win, I'll give you $10 million. If I win, you give me whatever I ask for.
Of course, Dad lost. Mr. Linden caught him cheating immediately. Mr. Linden said he was going to break Dad's hand for cheating. But a second before it happened, the girls whispered something in their dad's ear. And suddenly, Dad had a choice. Lose his hand forever, or leave me as a payment for their attempt to cheat. It was a no-brainer for my parents. It hurt. For years, I went along with their crazy schemes because I thought they wanted to give me a better life. Turned out they only ever cared about themselves. I was just some kid they adopted. A responsibility they didn't want. That's how I ended up living with the triplets. And from that day forward, I was their servant. The sisters would often fight over who got me for the day. They would order me around, make me open doors and clean their rooms for them. They made me pose for pics so they could post that they had a boyfriend. They would talk my ear off every night about every single little inconvenience in their privileged lives. They often sent me to bed without dinner, telling me I'll get fat and lose my abs if I ate at night. And the worst thing was everyone at school thought I'd gone over to the dark side. The only thing I liked about living with the girls was their stepmom. She was actually kind. She would always side with me when the girls were bullying me. And she sneaks into my room sometimes so I could have some dinner when the girls were starving me. There came a point where I actually fell in love with Stacy, and she told me she felt the same way. We planned our escape. But before we could do anything, Mr. Linden and the girls found out. They disowned Stacy. Mr. Linden threw her out of the house, and I was locked up in Mindy's room. It must have been a week, or 3 days. I could no longer tell because the windows were boarded shut. All I remember was hearing a bunch of shouting downstairs. And then FBI agents suddenly burst into the room. At first, I didn't know whether to be scared or relieved, and then I saw her. Stacy came back for me. Apparently, she knew all Mr. Linden's secrets and how he's been laundering money through his casino. The moment he threw her out, she decided to ruin his life. Mr. Linden's assets were seized, but since Stacy and him were still married, she got to keep what was left. She sent the girls to a strict boarding school, and after she divorced Mr. Linden, she and I lived together. I'm older now, and we're married. Honestly, I never looked back. I don't even think about my parents who abandoned me. I'm finally happy now.